as I've taught a lot of people, it's not always about the money. It's about everything else but the money. And we spent 2 hours talking about the deal on this set of houses. 25 minutes of it was money. The rest of it was non-cash items. It was relationship building. Okay, my name is Matthew Weaver. I'm in the Indiana, where it's where I live, Ohio, and surrounding states. Also, I'm working my way into Texas, but there's plenty to do right here in the Midwest, and so that's where I'm starting. Well, I have been
I love
starting.
it.
So,
And then tell us about how you started in real estate investing and where you're at right now with it.
I was in Saudi Arabia for 13 years, in Paris for a year and a half before that. My kids were basically our kids were basically raised overseas. And so after COVID started, um, we got locked out. I couldn't see my kids for about 10, 11 months because the borders were all shut down in Saudi. And so we went through a couple other, like my son and I got locked out at Christmas while my daughter and my wife were in Saudi. Spring break had the 14-day quarantine. So, they said, don't make a COVID decision. But in the second year, I made a COVID decision and I came home August of this year. But stepping back in October, when I came to see my kids, I set up a website, which is argentrealestate.com. And I had already had DealMachine going. I think I signed up that weekend I was here, and found a couple drivers, which was a great story because I went out to visit my mom in Arizona while my kids were in school during the week because I could only have them on the weekends. And I sat next to this young lady who was going the same direction. Ended up hiring her and her retired dad, who is a total beast. The man just does not. He just goes and goes and goes and puts on great houses, fills the funnel. He's phenomenal. And he actually found the first house that I bought. Um,
Wow.
and what happened is I was in Saudi Arabia. So October 20 until August of last year. And so I had watched Dave, I'd watched your DealMachine videos. So I had my spreadsheet set up. I would have calls with him every 2 weeks, talk about the averages they were running, look at the houses. Some would be a little too nice, whatever it may be, just like I learned from DealMachine. But I did it from 10,000 miles away. And
Holy crap.
so I had read, books on long distance investing. I've read, I don't know, 8 or 10 books at this point, and watched a lot of your videos, Bigger Pocket videos. And I was, so the difference was during my day, everybody's asleep here. And, and then as it got into my evening, I would catch everybody in the morning, or in the next morning, I'd catch them at the end of their day. And the weekends are different. So a weekend in Saudi is Friday, Saturday. So on a Friday, I've got all day to sit and catch up with the team and look at deals and that kind of thing, and can still catch people, well, most of the time, before their weekend. So
Oh
that's
my
the
gosh.
short start of how I got going.
So now you're back in the States
Yes,
for the
for good.
foreseeable future. Oh, for
I'm
good.
not going back. I was in Saudi 13 years. It was a great experience. It was great to raise our kids there. There's a lot of good things, but when I couldn't see them for 10 months, I'm like, I'm done with this. April of
Yeah.
21, told my wife, I said, you're out of here. Well, in fact, the summer of 20, I had to fly her out on an embassy flight to get her home to be with the kids for the summer. I couldn't get out, but I got her out. So yeah, it was just one pain after another. And I dealt with it for a year thinking it might subside. Of course, we all know the real story. Um, and so in April, end of April, I said, you know what? We got to get home to our kids. So we came home. We're looking for a place to live, trying to rent a place because I didn't want to, do a house right off the bat. That's impossible here. So found a place and decided I needed all the furniture because everything I own is in Saudi Arabia. I haven't owned a house in the United States for 10 years because we left in 2008. Sold it a few years later after the crash and when the price came back up. Um, So in retrospect, I should have just kept it and rented it out, but I hadn't found DealMachine yet to educate me on that. So I missed that one, but that's okay.
That's not your fault.
Yes, exactly. You guys weren't around. We're there now. We're there now, and we're picking up steam. So
What uh what did your deal so did you do all three of these deals overseas then?
no, the first one I did overseas, and the second two I did within 90 days of coming home.
Holy cow. And these are leads from your
For
drivers.
my drivers, my own driving, my wife did virtual driving. So what we would do is my wife Donna would go in and look at an area, look at it through Google, say, okay, I like this area, check out the perimeter, make sure we weren't like right on the edge of a really bad area. And we just, for lack of a better word, trusted the Google Maps and the Google View. And and then I would send drivers out, and at the time, if you remember, Uber drivers weren't very busy, Lyft drivers weren't very busy. Then there was the whole thing about not being treated very well. So every time I got in an Uber, I'm like, "So how often do you work?" "Oh, not near enough." "How'd you like to drive?" And what I do is look up, which is another thing I learned from Dave. Found the average Uber driver price value or what they earned in that city, and I'd offer a couple bucks more because usually it was around 17, $18. So I'd offer 20, or lower one with an incentive, which is my first drivers were on that plan. He got his $500 for finding the house on top of his hourly. He's ecstatic, and that
And
kind
he's still going, it sounds like he's still going
of,
strong right
he is
now.
he is. Um, his daughter got married, and so he's kind of helping her, just getting her life going and setting them up. They're very very close family, because she said no initially. Said no, I'm in school. I'm doing this. Came back about 4 months later and said, "I'm really sorry I didn't answer you 30 days ago when you asked, and I'd really like to start driving, and I think my dad does." I'm like, "Hey, no harm, no foul. I totally get it. Life's complicated. What are you going to get mad about, you know?"
Yeah.
So they got on deck and sent him the link and said, "There's about 7 videos. You need 30 minutes. Watch the videos." They had no problem. And dad's like close to 70, probably 68, 69. He's in beast mode all the time. Man's incredible.
Oh my
Not that she
gosh.
isn't great, but she would have times like studying, and she'd take a break and she would do virtual searching for me and find some things, and found some really good stuff. And so yeah, and when you're from that distance, I don't get into, oh, these five aren't the right ones. I would say, let's look for something a little more dilapidated, more needing more help, or maybe that's too nice. But I would just count them all, because I figured at that distance anyway, I want them to just pile everything in. What's the difference between one house that doesn't quite fit and one that does, what, a minute? So I wasn't going to worry about it. So I'm like, you put everything on there unless it's clearly nice, clearly well done, and not something that is clearly outside of what I want to do or what I want to buy, and the mission, right, of DealMachine. Just drop them all on there. Saved a lot of time having to figure all that out. And you're not going to figure it out from 10,000 miles anyway. I've done a lot of things overseas. I figured out how to do a lot of stuff from far away. That was one, just wasn't worth the time. Let's just go.
Well, I feel like even if you're here, we were just talking to another member who said, like, if you're questioning it, just add it. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
why take the five? Like, you're spending so much more time evaluating this.
Right.
If you have the thought that it might be, it probably needs to just be added.
Yeah. And sometimes maybe it's corporate owned and they want out. And it's just is kind of okay, but maybe you don't think it quite fits the model of needing help and a lot of heavy lifting, but it still might be a deal in there. So what the heck?
Well, talk us through that first deal then. What was the situation with that? Could you talk us through like
Oh,
when
for
they
sure,
called you or
because it's the
and
longest
what?
deal you'll ever heard worked. So he finds it, and we send out the mailers. And I think on the fifth mailer, approximately. So my wife does all the mailers. She designs them all. She managed all the system, and met with our CRM to make sure she knew how to use it, and does a great job. And the design and content and that kind of thing is absolutely my wife's forte. Picture of the family on there from when our son earned his Eagle Scout in Saudi Arabia. So that was the picture on there. She had it all broken down by, by state, by city, by corporate owned, absentee, owner occupied. So this was absentee, definitely a rental. I think about the fourth or fifth um, card, I got a phone call, and I had set up, not uncommon for a lot of us in Saudi to have American phone numbers, and just to set it up, mostly keep track of your kids, actually, much as they hate that. And so she called, says, "I'm interested in selling my house." So we start working on that, and she's got some tenants, and it needs a lot of help, which was great. I like doing the heavy lifting. That's obviously where the value is. Sorry, I know I'm jiggling this, aren't I?
You're good. You're
Okay,
good.
I just realized I'm bouncing all over the place. Um, so we started talking, and I didn't really realize it at that time, but once I got home, I realized and had read about, you need your team, you need the five parts of your team. And I didn't have a property manager, and wasn't really finding one. I went on a few places and they were okay. And, but I didn't really have this great team. So I decided, well, I don't want to buy this with the tenant in place, because they were really bad tenants. And I've seen a lot of ugly things in the world, and these people were treating her so badly. She's 72 years old, had retired. The landlord really put herself in a spot by not being a proper landlord or hiring someone to do it. And they were just totally taking advantage of her. So I like, you know what? I'll help you out with this. And so I think, the kind of the distance, probably, not afraid to say, a little bit of fear of pulling the trigger from 10,000 miles kind of thing. All those things are in play. And um, so then I was looking for a mentor. And I'd gone through the ones, hadn't hired them, but I had found ones that had all the Lamborghinis in front of the $1 million, $2 billion house, all that kind of stuff. Didn't find one, um, and really didn't find a one that I really wanted, because I've owned my own businesses. I even went to one of the bigger pockets main personalities, and I said, "Okay, so you've got the young people, 20s and 30s, they're getting into the business. Outstanding for them, right? Because they're getting in early and they can really set their life up. You've got you had the officer in the army who was transitioning out and had his 6 months transition time that officers get, and you had all that, but you didn't have someone who is older than most on the stream, but also has had three successful careers and was going to transition to a fourth, which is real estate. I've done a lot of things, and all of them very well. I've learned some lessons on other things, but that gives me more experience." And I said, "So you're missing this whole market of somebody who decides it's COVID. I want to do something different." Nobody responded. All right, so be it. Your loss. And off I went. So when I found the mentor, who's also in Indianapolis, um, he filled in a few pieces for me, and one was the property manager. All of a sudden, I had this. I'm not really that shy, kind of sometimes, and I've had this burst of confidence that now I have this really important piece, and that triggered the deal. I said, "Okay, I'll buy it with the tenants in it." Got in there, closed the deal, came down to about $5,000 difference. And I thought, so you're going to go this? I'm thinking to myself, you're going to go this long. You're going to put this much work together. You know the numbers work, and you're going to mess it up for 5,000. So I closed it. I still have a lot of, the ARV versus my purchase price has a good, nice bit of room. I'll be just fine. But all those little things go through your head. Sitting in her son's restaurant, negotiating the deal. They had done this beautiful job. I really appreciate it because I love to negotiate. She had set up somebody, and I think it was the uncle in the back in the kitchen, because I heard his voice. And he called about 15 minutes into the deal to say, I'm an investor and would offer X amount more. No, 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 she says, I'm working with this gentleman, but I'll call you if it doesn't go through. And I thought, that's a great move. I see right through it. That's a great move.
Wow.
I thought I really appreciated the effort she put into it. And I know her son did it because her son's like, hey, my mom needs the best price. I'm like, absolutely, your mom does. But she's also got tenants that are going to take all of her retirement because the smoke alarms have been taken out, the windows don't open. If there's a fire, her insurance is going to claim negligence, and you're going to be in big trouble. Yeah, it's got to have a fire, but they smoke a lot in that room. Who's to say someone doesn't fall asleep with a cigarette in their mouth in their bed? All reality. There's no lie. There's no like totally ridiculous scenario because that was totally the scenario with this house. We came to a deal, and I went to work on it. So when I had come during some of my trips home to the U.S., I went and actually saw the house and actually went through the house. My wife and I did, and right next door is a house being remodeled with a contractor. So I go over and chat with him. And so when it came time to start working on this house, he says, "Yep, I'm ready. I got an opening in my schedule." And so I said, "Well, you know the house because you just worked on the house next door." And this neighborhood was patterned after the GI housing after World War II. So they're all very
Mhm.
similar houses. So the contractor fell in place. I had a property manager who got the tenants out on time, on schedule. Um, Otherwise, evictions 45 days, that would have really messed my schedule up. And off to the races we went. So that was deal number one.
I love that. So you are like that was so when was that time? I know you said you were in Saudi Arabia. So like where
So,
what when was that?
October 20th was signing up with DealMachine. October 2020. Somewhere in 21, I forget when he found the house, and then I actually closed it right around the time that I came home. So it was like I don't know. I think within it was either 30 days either side of either coming home or before I came home that I got to a point where I said, okay, let's make a deal. And then when I flew home, I actually sat with her and closed it out. So
Okay, that is the most interesting and impressive like closing that I've heard so far. Like I really I'm glad you appreciate it because I'm like thinking here and I'm like, yeah, okay, she's like making sure that he doesn't like just like
yeah,
take her.
yep, absolutely. And I told her from the beginning,
She's
I said, look at my website. My website, to go back to that when I was designing that, I told my wife, I said, this I buy ugly houses doesn't sit with me. I don't care who you are or what situation you're in, or you don't know how to get out of your house, and all those scenarios that we all know. They don't have the money to get out. They have a situation. They need the money. The agents aren't going to look at it because it's such disrepair. But nobody wants to be told they live in an ugly house. So I said, that's not my route.
so true.
And I listened to Joe the closer on one of your videos, and his line was not, I shouldn't say a line because that degrades it, but his phrase was, how can I help you, kind of thing. And that's how my website leads off. And
Oh, I love
it's
that.
about how can we solve your problems together. And that's how I approach it. And um, she didn't get her last month's rent. I said, I'll collect it for you. If I am able to collect it, I'll make sure you get it, kind of thing. And she's like, you know what? I know that'll happen. As it was, they didn't pay. And so, it didn't happen. Um, but that's the way I was going to like post closing. There's nothing enforceable, but I will live by my word because that's all I have. It's the only thing I can control in this world.
So you're just like still going strong then. What is so how many doors do you want to end
A
up
thousand
having?
in 10 years.
Heck yeah. I'm ready to be right here on that journey with you.
We're moving along.
I'm I'm so excited for you. So these drivers though have been with you for
Yeah,
a year,
over a year.
two?
They took a gap preparing for her wedding. And like I said, they're a very tight knit family, so everybody gets involved. And I said, yeah, take a break. I had some just things with around COVID, nothing, just time where I kind of took a break, and so it kind of coincided. So we have probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months in there where things just kind of were quiet, and it was, we both needed that quiet. I mean, we had missiles. The Iranians were attacking Saudi Arabia. A missile landed behind my compound about 700 yards. So there was things I was dealing with and getting, so it's like, yeah, I probably won't look at houses for a little while. You need to go prepare for a wedding. We'll just come back when the time's right. And we all did. So,
I think that's very fair. I think you can definitely
yes.
take off time if that's happening. That's very
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
valid.
good enough reason for me. Anybody who doesn't like it, the
Yeah,
heck with them.
no, so with having your home now, so is that like are you just like adding all the properties? Like what does the rest of this year look like for
Oh,
you guys then as a
so I ended up finding the next story is almost as good as the first one. Is I found two houses. The property line has some functional obsolescence and it's very tight, but I ended up buying two houses, literally one door down, two doors down from where I live. And so I'm renovating the front one. I'll finish here in about 3 weeks, or by the end of June, we'll be done. The second one is rented. Um, and it's a relative of the previous owner. So that was part of my negotiation is, we all need to take care of mom and you should take care of mom. So part of my deal, as I've taught a lot of people, it's not always about the money. It's about everything else but the money. And we spent 2 hours talking about the deal on this set of houses. 25 minutes of it was money. The rest of it was non-cash items. It was relationship building. And so part of the deal was I'd make sure that mom didn't have to move for a certain period of time. It's under market rent, but the house needs work as well. But it gives me stability and it pays the interest on my loan for the other house and all the construction aspects. So it wins all the way around. And so that was one of the deals or one of the aspects that made that deal work. So,
I love so what is the cash flow do you feel like on those that's gonna end up being for
oh,
those?
on Indy construction, I've had a couple unknowns come in, but I think still we're going to be in the not think I know because I keep running the numbers. I think the last number I have was about 450 a month on Indy,
Nice.
and this one here I'm going to short term rental, and in this town they're strong as heck. It's super, super strong. So, Air DNA and the agent that I use and that one I used an agent because the way I connected through it. And I know her quite well. The other one I did my own deal and my own paperwork, which also came off of DealMachine. So some of it. So
I'm so glad. And honestly, as you're talking, I know who you are only because Krista's talked
ah,
about you. And I know that she works with
yes,
your wife now that
yes,
you say that. But someone was talking about, oh, we have this member in Saudi that's and I'm like, who is doing real estate like halfway across the world? And honestly, like, I'm so glad that we're able to like meet and talk because so many people I think get stuck in their head. They get analysis paralysis when they're in
yes,
the area
yeah,
that they're doing it. You were thousands of
yes.
miles away having
Ten
to do
time, ten
this,
time zones.
and I'm just in different time zones, and like so that's so insane, and it shows like that anyone like if you put your mind
Yeah,
to it can do this, and I'm glad that we were able to give you resources to
absolutely.
help with that. Like that's
Yep.
so
And
rewarding.
and the other part, I, I went to Miracle Morning. You maybe have heard of that. I forget the gentleman's name that had been through the accidents and the cancer. So every morning I just read 10 pages of whatever my latest real estate book is, and and it's amazing how fast you blow through books. And then the other thing, like I have my kids reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, especially my son because he's graduating, and he said, Dad, why are you reading that negotiating book? You love to do it and do a really good job. I said, because I will learn at minimum a half a dozen things out of that book that I never thought of. So never set it aside and think, oh, I don't need that. I know everything about it. I said, that's the moment you fall squarely on your face and embarrass yourself. I said, so yeah, I may flip through a chapter because it's repetitively boring and I don't need it. But somewhere in there is a kernel of wisdom that I will use. So,
It's always learning, and I love that. You're just like, you won't ever know
no.
everything. We're going to just
And then the other part that
continue.
really came and landed hard in a good way was how important that whole team aspect is. You think, yeah, okay, I know I need a contractor. And oh man, how am I going to manage construction from this far away and make sure that I'm not getting taken? And I've written a lot of contracts as well in my life, but I'm like, okay, distance, they're going to immediately think, ooh, got a whale here, and so that I focused on and knew, okay, that's going to be a tricky one, and then um, and thought, yeah, I need to find property manager, but where am I going to land? All these kind of things. And then when I found that property manager, which was really the last key piece, I can't understate the amount of confidence it gives you when you say, oh, I have my team. I can really go after it now. I don't have this hole that I don't quite know what to do. And I know I do not want to do property management. I can tell you that. No way, no how ain't happening today. So, and when I found him, which was through my mentor, uh, that came together. Then I was looking at a mixed use, and needed some help with the commercial aspect, trying to convert it to all residential, that kind of thing. It's a deal I walked away from because it was just too far out my wheelhouse. And at the time I was looking at it, um, it was a case of, we know things are going to change in the economy. The Fed's already said they're going to, but we didn't have any idea what they were going to be doing. The Fed doesn't have the greatest reputation for doing it well. So the long term aspect of it, um, is what shut me down. I'm like, the numbers actually make pretty good sense. There's grants, but then there's politics that come with grants, and if you don't get it, that kind of thing. So I walked away from it, and it still hasn't sold. Oh, we've got other buyers. Hey, that's terrific. I don't want to be in your way. I will step aside cleanly, and 5 months later, it's still sitting, or 3 months later, it's still sitting there. So who knows? Maybe we'll come back to it later. Also,
I was about to say, I mean, that sounds like something that might be hot a
yes,
little bit
yeah, I think
later.
I think just later, and and then right now it's making sure you don't listen to too much of the media, which is always the case anyway.
Mm.
But yes, we're going to have a change. We've already had a change, and it happened really quickly. For me, that's the people who are in it because it was easy, and as soon as it gets tough, will change careers. I'm glad to have them go. I wish them no ill. It's not that, but there's a lot of people out there that were bidding things up unnecessarily, let alone just the market driving prices. So now there's a few people who will leave, and for those of us who stay, it makes for a better market. So it's not to be afraid of; it's to look for opportunity, and more opportunity going forward. Is the way I look at it. I'll let you know in a little while whether I was right,
I
but
love that.
that's what I'm going with.
I'll tell you right now, that right there is a great snippet of what to really think about, because I think that is a thing where, people just think, oh, it's too hard. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
like when COVID hit, we saw like a ton of people that were just like, nope, don't know what's happening. And the
Mm,
unknown
boy.
is scary. But those that like plowed through and kept going, like yourself, you joined in October of 2020, like they are wildly successful right now, and like have put those processes in place where it's like they have their team, they have it so they can keep going even when it gets
Right,
to a tough
right.
point. So I'm so excited to hear, like we definitely need to continue to keep in touch, because I would love to hear about the doors that you get, and plus I'd love to hear any more stories about uh, the closing table things. I'm seriously going to like make a post about that or something. That's so smart. Like this woman I want to like meet and be
Yeah,
like, you know what, you did it
yeah.
well.
And
You like
she
did it
is
right.
such a dear. She's
Um
72 years old. looks like she's 60, but she, and tell you the truth, I just adore her. I couldn't have crossed her in a bad way if I wanted to, because I spent so many months talking to her on the phone and trying to work things out. And she'd call and say, "Oh, this is happening." I'm like, you know what? Stop that right now. Don't let that happen to you. And I told her, I said, you know what? Let me take this. I will figure out a way to get you out of this, or get them at least out. Because she was like, I don't really want to evict them. And I'm like, that's your choice. I totally get it. Well, you own the property, that's your choice. Let me see what else I can do. And I spent a lot of hours and a lot of months just kind of protecting her until it got to the point where I decided, listen, I got to pull this trigger and buy it, or it's just going to slip away. Um, and but I wouldn't have done it differently any other way. I mean, watching out for her or making sure she's okay was just is what it should be. Got to look out for each other.
Well, and you're
Oh
gonna
yeah,
get referrals from that. Like she's definitely, if she has a friend that's in an issue, like
yeah,
she'll be like, "Oh,
yeah,
go to Matthew. He's great.
yes.
He helped me
And
out."
now I'm the house is a thorn in between two roses, and my neighbor to the right, who has been in that neighborhood a long time, she just adores me because I've gotten rid of that thorn that was really kind of hurting the neighborhood. So, that's good for me too. She watches the house, and yeah, do you have someone coming by to do this or
Ooh,
this? I'm like, yeah, I do that one. I do that one. I don't know who that is. Okay, I'm just letting you know. I said, I really appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, she's a
that's a
great
good
neighbor. She's
neighbor.
absolutely a doll. Absolutely a doll.
I love that so much. I want to be. I'm so sorry. I went over
Oh,
our
no
time. I
worries.
just
But I got
realized that.
one last thing before we
Um,
shut it off, is that
yeah.
sometimes when things get
No, yeah.
rolling, the luck, or I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. So I got these houses, and then one of my close friends from I've known him 15 years and have trusted him with my life, and he says, I have a friend that wants to invest a significant sum of money, like six digits. And he says, as soon as you show him that this house will do what you say it, the way you've penciled the numbers, he'll invest. And I've known him so long, he doesn't show up with pie in the sky. So now I'm sitting where I just have to finish this house. I will actually either turn it or show him the numbers, because I prefer not to flip it. I prefer to keep it. But if I have to turn it for this, I will. And and then I'll have a significant investor come in, and it'll just be great timing because things will come down to a better price. Numbers, we'll have to work the numbers a little harder with rates, but prices will adjust at least a little bit. And I just believe
Hmm.
that everything was stepping the right way, and all of a sudden he shows up. Okay, so
Oh my gosh!
yeah, super
Congratulations on
excited.
that. That's huge.